A young Gojo is shown by his grandfather Kaoru the hina dolls that he and his friends made, and Gojo is captivated by them. This inspires him to create his own hina dolls, but his friend disapproves of his love of dolls as it's a girl thing and ends her friendship with him. In the present, Gojo wakes up from the noise by his phone alarm and says good morning to the head of the doll that inspired him into pursuing doll crafting. Heading downstairs, Gojo says good morning to his grandfather and prays to the altar of his parents and grandmother. As breakfast is prepared, Gojo talks with his grandfather about unburdening himself with his work late at night, to which Gojo brushes off, noting that Gojo doesn't have much talent for creating doll faces, but the costumes he creates are excellent. The conversation then changes to if Gojo has any friends, to which Gojo blurts out that he does, they're just all busy with their own things. Afterward, Gojo heads to school and in an inner monologue admits that even in high school, he doesn't have any friends. The cause for this is mainly due to his obsession with hina dolls, as it's not a common interest with his peers. As Gojo laments over his shortcomings, Kitagawa flies backward on his desk, banging her head on it. Apologizing for the incident, Kitagawa notices some black ink on his left arm, figuring it's a cut of the sort. Flustered, Gojo responds that it's fine despite it not being so. However, Kitagawa understands and leaves. Gojo then cogitates about the ink on his arm and notes his envy of Kitagawa, how a lot of personality quirks that she has he lacks. At the front of the room, Noa tells her friends about an incident involving her and Kitagawa. Apparently, the two got their hair done the day before, and when a guy tried to hit on Kitagawa, he disparaged her charms as lame. So Kitagawa retorts that he was lame and left the salon, leaving the man despondent. In her defense, Kitagawa claims that the man interpreted as something she was not and that he shouldn't judge her for her interests. Hearing this strikes a chord with Gojo, who overhears their conversation and thinks even though she's in a separate world from his, they have a commonality between them. After school, Gojo stays behind to put the chairs on their desks and is soon joined by Kitagawa, who helps him because she has cleaning duty that week. Curious to know why he's there, Kitagawa asks if Gojo was pressured to work there, and he reluctantly admits that he was. It was his being told that he's so reliable that he agrees to do it. Kitagawa argues that they don't think he's reliable. They think it's easy for them to exploit him to do menial labor. She follows up by saying he should stand up for himself more and continues working. That night at his home, Gojo cuts his hand, and as his grandfather gets a band-aid for him, he recalls what Kitagawa said to him earlier that day. He then realizes that the sewing machine he was using was broken. Gojo tells his grandfather, who returns with a band-aid, about this, and he says that they'll need to get a new one. Sad that he doesn't have a sewing machine to use, Gojo has an epiphany to use the one at his school. The following day, Gojo uses the sewing machine in the sewing practice room and is impressed by how easy it is to use. While he's enamored by his doll's head, Kitagawa abruptly enters the room, causing an awkward pregnant pause between the two. Amid this, Gojo nearly drops his doll's head and talks with it, only to realize that Kitagawa not only saw, but also heard him, and glares at him, believing it's all over for him. On the contrary, Kitagawa loves the fact that he can use a sewing machine. Not only that, but Kitagawa compliments the hina doll head that Gojo carries around, which internally elates him. When asked by Kitagawa if he made it, Gojo answers that his grandfather made it and that he's only good with costumes. Hearing this, Kitagawa starts to strip out of her clothes and has him see her wearing the black outfit she's been making. Shown an example of what she was trying to copy, Gojo speaks unintentionally curtly by reviewing the outfit, hurting Kitagawa's feelings, prostrating himself to Kitagawa. She forgives him and claims that she made her outfit as a form of cosplay of a character named Shizuku Tan, because she doesn't have a sewing machine at home and her skill with sewing is lacking. She begs Gojo to create her outfit for her, moved by not only her compliment from earlier but also everything that he recalled that she said that resonated with him. Gojo agrees to help Kitagawa, but admits he's never made clothing for a human before. This makes Kitagawa overjoyed and offers to help as best as she can, and also divulges the character's backstory, which irks Gojo. Gojo confesses to Kitagawa that he's never heard of the dating sim Slippery Girls 2. So Kitagawa gives him a rundown about the series. As Kitagawa explains the series to Gojo, he's off-put by all of the mature details involved in the game's plot and mechanics. Internally, Gojo is at a loss as he's unable to comprehend what Kitagawa is trying to elaborate to him. Figuring that this is just some joke of the sort, Gojo comes to realize that Kitagawa is completely serious about the game's info. Back to Kitagawa, she goes on to explain her fascination with the character she hopes to cosplay as Shizuku Tan. When Kitagawa asks if Gojo understands her, Gojo internally responds that he doesn't have the slightest clue. He does come to realize that when Kitagawa talks about something she likes, it looks like she's generally having fun. Once Kitagawa's explanation is over, Gojo asks the question if the Slippery Girls 2 is an Ero game. Kitagawa confirms that it isn't. Gojo then asks if the game is age restricted. But to that question, Kitagawa plays dumb. He next asks why she likes a game centered towards a male audience. But Kitagawa claims that lots of females do and that gender doesn't matter if you really like something. The phrase Kitagawa uses triggers a bad old memory from Gojo's past, and instead of being downtrodden by it, he agrees with Kitagawa to help Gojo with his project. Kitagawa pulls out a beginner's guide to cosplaying outfit making. They refrain from starting anything like getting necessary supplies and measurements as it's getting late. At home, Gojo's grandfather Kaoru notes his surprise to see how early he's in bed and that he won't be opening the shop the next day to purchase a new sewing machine. Looking over the book again, Gojo is surprised by a certain thing that he found in the book. The following morning, Kitagawa visits Gojo's place and after giving him a cheesecake offering, she barges in and heads straight for Gojo's room, as Kitagawa is interested in the brushes he uses for his dolls. Gojo suffers an anxiety attack because a girl is in his room. Regaining his composure, Kitagawa snaps him out of his trance and asks if he wants to start working. Kitagawa wants to start with the measurements. However, Gojo wants someone else to help her with that as she'll need to be in her underpants for that. Thinking ahead, Kitagawa reveals that she wore a two-piece bikini for the occasion. Still, however, Gojo is unnerved by Kitagawa's appearance and is irked when she touches him. From there, Gojo motivates himself to measure Kitagawa, but gets startled by her appearance. While she's turned around, Gojo asks her if she feels uncomfortable only wearing her swimsuit, to which she responds she's not and cares only for the cosplay costume, slapping his face really hard with both of his hands. Gojo motivates himself to finally start the measurements. Once they're completed, Kitagawa asks about the shoes she can wear as most ones she tries to wear hurt her feet. To that point, Gojo surmises the circumference of her feet must be the problem and tries to get a chair to take her foot measurements. But Kitagawa insists she sit on his futon instead. Despite protests against it, Gojo succumbs to Kitagawa's whims and takes her measurements from there. The next thing that they measure is Kitagawa's bust, which leads to an awkward moment for Gojo. Once that is complete, Kitagawa suggests they measure her inseam and bust point. Again, Gojo flatly rejects doing it, and after another awkward moment for Gojo, Kitagawa proposes that she'll do it herself. The results of the measurements have Gojo shocked out of his mind for no apparent reason as he put it, jotting down the last measurement. Gojo prepares to do the last measurement and during it, Gojo notices that Kitagawa is blushing and figures she's too hot so he leaves to turn on the AC. By the end of the day, all of the measurements have been taken and Gojo asks Kitagawa for references for the character outfit that she wants. So, Kitagawa gives Gojo both games as a reference and is flustered when he sees her not fully dressed in her old outfit. Later that night, Kaoru catches Gojo playing one of the games and chalks it to being him being at that age, but is shocked by the fact that he's taking notes. Gojo has a dream featuring Kitagawa dressed in her finished cosplay outfit. It starts off innocent until, however, Kitagawa begins to succumb to the character's hero personality. Awakening from the dream in a cold sweat, Gojo notices something. He looks at his doll head and asks that she look the other way. At school, Gojo contemplates how he'll be able to look at Kitagawa again, and as it so happens she walks down the hallway with Noah as passersby compliment her. Trying to avoid contact with her, Gojo is still spotted by Kitagawa who approaches him and thanks him for the help he did for her on SETI. Inside of Gojo's head, he becomes so flustered because of the dream he had of her and the conflicting emotions that go against the doll head that he adores so much. Kitagawa then suggests that she curl her hair that day and they're then joined by Kitagawa's other friends Noah, Dea, and Rune. One of the friends believes that Kitagawa is making Gojo feel uncomfortable, but Kitagawa insists that she isn't going as far as to get close to Gojo, creating a minor scene between the two. The girls then leave to go to a vending machine and Gojo thinks that Kitagawa treats him the same way she does when they're alone. He then overhears a couple of girls talking about how Gojo could be her boyfriend, but the notion is dismissed. Afterward, Kitagawa tries to set up a meeting with Gojo, but he flatly declines. This leads to a trend where Gojo avoids any contact with Kitagawa throughout the day, until school is over where Kitagawa finally catches up to Gojo and asks him to go shopping with her. Again, Gojo declines and abruptly leaves, squatting by a curve near the train station in hopes to avoid Kitagawa. However, she appears behind him, she scolds him and demands to know why Gojo was acting so weird with her throughout the day. Gojo admits that it's awkward being around her when they're not friends, but Kitagawa proudly claims they're already friends. He then mentions that he overheard a couple of people claiming they're in a relationship, to which Kitagawa teases maybe they should be, which flusters Gojo. After admitting she was joking, Kitagawa grasps Gojo's arm and pulls him away to do some shopping, visiting a hobby shop named Yuzueya. The two loiter around the cosplay section as Gojo gives Kitagawa the notes he took down related to the character she wishes to dress as. He goes on to detail what they'll need to create it and tips to make it all work. They first choose the fabric based on what best reflects the character's background standing. Although the fabric he chose is pricey, and he has no money on hand, Gojo is astonished that Kitagawa has money to pay for whatever. Despite his hesitance, Gojo accepts the money to use to create her outfit. They continue shopping at the place and when they're done, they head to a place called Swallowtail that specializes in wigs. Taken aback by the selection of wigs there, Gojo is astounded by the colors and variations of what they have for sale there. The two then find the wig that Kitagawa wishes to use, but Gojo suggests that they go with purple as Shizuku Tan's color character is purple. Furthermore, Gojo believes that the color would better complement her appearance, and Kitagawa is shocked by how in-depth Gojo's analysis was. Gojo suggests they go with a deep violet color wig with a long-length one that could be trimmed enough to suit Shizuku Tan's asymmetrical bob cut. Hence, Kitagawa claims she'll have her hairstylist cut it for her and notes that she's glad she didn't go shopping alone or else she'd have purchased incorrect material for the costume. As Kitagawa goes to purchase what they have, Gojo feels grateful for being useful. When their business is done in the wig shop, they head to their final destination, the lingerie shop, to purchase some garters and stockings, forced to help Kitagawa with this part of the shopping trip as well. Gojo is forced to wait outside of the changing booth. It's there that Kitagawa teases Gojo, making him feel super uneasy. By the evening, the two enjoy some ramen, and as they leave, a lady watches them in envy, noting how young and in love they are while she has to work. They then walk past the lady and talk about how far Gojo is in Slippery Girls, and the explanation irks the lady as well as the other people waiting in line. As they walk home, Gojo says he'll take the material home with him and asks if there are designated places to wear the costumes at. Kitagawa answers that there are plenty of places, mainly at events or in your own home, and then shows Gojo some examples. One of the examples, Juju-san, who is a renowned one who never attends events, but is super popular, continuing with her fascination with the cosplays of not only female, but male cosplayers. Kitagawa asks if Gojo was okay, as he spoke not a word. In his defense, Gojo admits that he was thinking of how his own fascination with hina dolls and how it all began. This prompts Kitagawa to comment how Gojo is such a face guy because he likes the faces of the hina dolls the most. Gojo apologizes, noting how hard it is to express his thoughts on how the people looked, but Kitagawa claims that it's fine. They continue walking until Kitagawa spots a food truck that sells meat wrapped onigiri, and Kitagawa purchases one for herself. As they continue walking, Kitagawa enjoys her food and Gojo tries to repay her for the food that they enjoyed earlier. But Kitagawa refuses, as it was her treat. She also confesses how surprised she was when Gojo not only played the game Slippery Girls game, but created such elaborate notes for the cosplay character. Kitagawa then offers a bit of her food, but he refuses, so as she starts to finish it off, she asks if he thought she tends to pig out, breaking into a cold sweat. Gojo denies the thought, but Kitagawa knows better and goes on a tirade about her size to a flustered Gojo. By the Ike Bureau station, Gojo learns that Kitagawa plans to attend an event 2 weeks from that day, which leaves Gojo completed astounded. Distraught over the fact that he has 2 weeks to complete the cosplay costume of Shizuku-tan, Gojo contemplates all of this as he takes the train home. At home, Kaoru greets his grandson and was pleased to hear that he was out doing some shopping with a friend. He, however, becomes irked and tips over one of the bags over, revealing that it has a pair of women's stockings in it, causing him to fall backward in shock. This event causes him to go to the hospital to be treated there. And while waiting in the waiting room, Gojo's cousin Miori arrives. Gojo informs her about their grandfather's condition, and he soon joins them. Taking a seat, Miori offers Kaoru to stay at her place for the 2 weeks he needs to recover. Gojo echoes that suggestion, claiming it'd be best, which leaves him to watch over the shop. Kaoru accepts the offer, and when Gojo claims he'll bring him an extra pair of clothes the following day, Kaoru also requests his brushes too. A couple of days later, Gojo informs Kitagawa why he didn't attend school the previous day was because of his grandfather's accident. Sad to hear about his grandfather's condition, Kitagawa offers to help him out with cooking and stuff. Gojo declines the offer, however, so Kitagawa suggests they exchange contact information as a way to stay in contact with one another. Tacitly, Gojo agrees, and after they do this, they walk down a hallway as Gojo thinks how he's been unable to start working on the costume. Kitagawa then mentions that her hairstylist managed to cut the wig to the style that she wanted and that she'll give it to him later that day. They then stop by a bulletin board where it announces the upcoming midterms, which adds another wrinkle for Gojo's plans for the next 2 weeks. Snapped out of his trance by Kitagawa, the two continue walking forward as Gojo notes the trouble he's in. That evening at home, Gojo receives a call from someone who wants a tour for herself and a friend visiting from France. Initially, Gojo refuses to do the tour on Saturday, but since the friend is only available that day, he cracks under the pressure and allows it, for some time. Gojo is caught in a bind trying to fulfill all of the obligations that he promised to do. At the end of the exams, Gojo, looking exhausted, bolts out of the classroom, completely ignoring Kitagawa. That night she visits his home to give him a beef bowl present, but sees that the lights are all off and figures that he must be spending time with his grandfather. In reality, Gojo was in his room lamenting over his lack of sleep as of late and how he hasn't been able to complete the dress. Looking at his brushes, Gojo recalls a memory of when his grandfather told him why he takes his brushes with him on his trips. Gojo further laments on his pitiable brush skills and comes to think that even if you love something doesn't mean you'll be good at it. Getting depressed and emotional over his recent failures, he recalls another memory where his grandfather gives him mindful advice about regardless of how hard you work on something, as long as you love it, it's worth it. Recalling some of his fond memories with Kitagawa, Gojo snaps out of his depression and continues working, and by morning, he texts Kitagawa that he finished the costume. Afterward, Kitagawa sees the finished product and is astounded by it, but claims that she didn't intend on attending the event that day despite Gojo's determination to finish it. Despondent over this revelation, Kitagawa sincerely apologizes to Gojo for giving the wrong idea to him, and not being clear with the details. Despite all of this, Gojo was actually relieved by all of this, but Kitagawa cries and she believed he was visiting his grandfather and again apologizes for her mistakes. To lighten the mood, Gojo suggests that Kitagawa try on the finished product and see if any adjustments need to be made. Despite her hesitancy to do so, Gojo convinces Kitagawa to follow through with it. The first thing, Gojo does is comb and tie Kitagawa's hair into a bun. Next they focus on the eyes. Spare fake eyelashes from Gojo's shop are used, and without hesitation, Kitagawa shaves off her own eyelashes to better suit the cosplay. Makeup is then applied and Gojo leaves his room so Kitagawa can get dressed in the costume. The end result is that Kitagawa is elated that she looks so great in the costume and that she's able to be Shizuku-tan. Gojo sees Kitagawa dressed in her Shizuku-tan cosplay and compliments it, which makes Kitagawa elated. When asked by Gojo if it fits well, Kitagawa replies that it does. However, it's difficult to lift her arms, which prompts Gojo to take a mental note. Kitagawa also compliments her boob bag and the length of her skirt, which allows a decent view of her garters. In a euphoric state, Kitagawa requests that Gojo take some pictures of her, and he does with her cell phone. The first one he takes. Gojo comments how her pose is more like hers and suggests that she poses as Shizuku-tan would, using his closet door as a makeshift white backdrop. Gojo takes some pictures of Kitagawa posing as Shizuku-tan. Impressed by the photos taken, Kitagawa creates an account to upload them all under the name Kitagawa. Kitagawa then suggests that they go to the event the following day, now that she's motivated and going. On the day of the event, Kitagawa is dazzled by all of the people cosplaying there and recognizes a few celebrity cosplayers there. Despite Kitagawa being super excited to be there, Gojo looks and feels neurotic, noting how out of place he feels with all of the women there. Furthermore, he notes how they're drawing attention and believes it's due to his attire, but Kitagawa downplays it as something natural for him. She also notes that it's certainly because of her boob bag, which she believes is the best there. So to help mitigate Gojo's anxiety, they move to the upper parts of the place where most of the photographers are at. It's there that Kitagawa encounters her first photo shoot with the photographer. After the photographer is finished, Kitagawa asks for a selfie with him, and then another photographer asks to take her picture. Gojo then notices that a line had formed to take Kitagawa's picture and looks around to see the different kinds of people cosplaying around there. Looking at Kitagawa, Gojo notes how happy he is for Kitagawa. He then realizes that his days hanging with Kitagawa are now over, now that he fulfilled his promise with her to create her cosplay costume for her. Reflecting on his time spent with Kitagawa, Gojo notes how the time he shared with Kitagawa was to him unreal. Once finished with the line of photographers, Kitagawa rushes over to a perplexed Gojo and while panting notes her relief that Gojo didn't abandon her. She then bluntly states that her clothes are ready to fall off. In her explanation, Kitagawa states that the night prior, she examined the photos they took of her and noticed that her boobs didn't look big enough. To fix this, she wore double new bras and now her breasts feel like they're going to burst. A panic-stricken Gojo notes that the clothing wasn't meant for such bras, and Kitagawa notes how hot she is in the cosplay. Realizing her heat exhaustion is due to the fabric he chose, Gojo has Kitagawa to a different location, inside a nearby building. Kitagawa wipes off all of the sweat on her and puts on a cool patch over her forehead. Looking up tips on how to cool down, Gojo finds out that requires Kitagawa to get undressed from her outfit. Kitagawa then has Gojo unzip her despite his hesitance and desire to have it done in a dressing room. She then has him wipe down her back with a towel, and Gojo does so reluctantly. After using a towel to wipe clean underneath her skirt and making some adjustments to reinforce her clothing, the two head back outside. Kitagawa apologizes to the photographer who had taken photos of her and allows the photographer to take more by the shade. During the shoot, a strong gust of wind lifts up Kitagawa's skirt, revealing markings on her thighs. Although unfazed by this incident, Kitagawa allows the photographer to take more photos to make up for it. By dusk, Gojo and Kitagawa ride the train back home, and Gojo thanks Kitagawa for allowing him to join her at that event. Kitagawa says Gojo is welcome for that and then asks what cosplay they'll do next, which surprises him. In Kitagawa's confession, she has 51 favorite characters she wants to cosplay as, noting how happy Gojo looked. Kitagawa is then told by Gojo that he looks forward to continuing working with her, and plans to buy a dress mannequin to make his work easier. Glad to hear Gojo's commitment, Kitagawa insists that she purchase one for him. Finding one on the net, Kitagawa notices that Gojo looks very drowsy and suggests that he take a nap. Kitagawa then elaborates her experience at the event to Gojo, and he compliments Kitagawa as very beautiful dressed as Shizuku-tan, recalling that Gojo only uses the word beautiful to very special things that are associated with him. This realization astounds Kitagawa.
And it's implied that she may have fallen head over heels for Gojo. That's it for today. Thanks for watching. If you'd like a part 2 of this video, please like and comment below to let us know. Goodbye for now.